All right, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Mark of Balance. My name is Mark, and today we've got a very special episode to celebrate me in all my glory. I'm kidding. To celebrate 500 downloads across all streaming platforms. Thanks to you guys. Give it a little round of applause here. Really amazing stuff. Can't believe that I started this podcast back in January, and people have listened to me 500 times. It's wild, but because you guys got me here, I let you guys pick the next topic of discussion for the episode. And it was between my personal Star Wars movie rankings or my top 20 Clone Wars episodes. You guys selected the movies. Not too surprising, but it was very close. I think it was, a couple votes in between them, which was really surprising. I thought it would just all be towards the movies, but I appreciate you guys wanting my Clone Wars opinion. That one will be coming soon. Spoiler alert, I was going to do both of them anyway. I wanted you guys to think you had power, but you simply had no power. I was going to do these episodes anyway. So you got, and I don't apologize. So, the way of the Sith Lord, sorry. I mean, not sorry. But how we're going to do this is we're going to go from 12 to 1. Yes, I said 12 to 1. I will be adding the Clone Wars movie that came out before the TV series into this, because obviously it introduced Ahsoka. It has a lot of important things that have ripple effects into the show, and then obviously in Revenge of the Sith and beyond. So I believe it deserves to be in these rankings, and it's not usually talked about in these rankings. And I will, because I'm here to be the balance and do things right. How I'm going to judge the movie, obviously it's going to be personal preference, but this will be holistic. I will not be fully objective. I'll be mostly subjective, but I will acknowledge when something in my movie ranking might not be in the correct place on other movie rankings. And I'll acknowledge that by doing these 4 things. First, I'm going to talk about my favorite scene in each movie. Then my favorite quote. And then soundtrack, because we love scores around here. Yes, we do. And then impact. Impact is going to be really important because a movie might be better than another one, but in my opinion, I always look for Star Wars to push the boundary, change things up, do something new. So when I talk about impact, that's really what I'm going to be focusing on, because something could be much better than another one, but if one does something outside the box that works in the Star Wars universe, I'm always going to pick that one over the latter. No, the first one. I don't know. You know what I'm saying. So I think we'll just hop right in at number 12. Admittedly, I have only seen this movie once, so I can't give too many of the answers to some of these because the memory's a little foggy on it. But Solo. Solo, to me, first of all, shouldn't have been made. I never thought that Han Solo needed a backstory. I never needed to know more about him. I think it was perfect that his backstory was mysterious. And that's basically it. I remember having a good time watching the movie, but I never had the desire to rewatch the movie. Even though I think I should. I think I might get a little more out of it. But as of right now, it is at number 12 with one singular viewing. My favorite scene probably would be the train heist scene. That was really, really cool. I liked Han Solo and Chewbacca, coming together to work together for the first time, other than, breaking out of a mud pit and mud wrestling. And it was just a unique sequence, so I really liked that. Quote, I think the only quotes that stick with me are from the trailer, even though probably something Woody Harrelson has said probably would be my favorite quote, but I can't think of it. So I'd probably just say, the part where Chewbacca is super old and Han goes, "You're that old? You look great." Thought that was pretty good. I don't know. Soundtrack, only saw it once. Nothing stuck with me. Couldn't tell you. Sorry. We'll get better as we go in. And impact, it impacted a lot of people that want a Solo too. For me, I personally do not, but I would be okay seeing these actors again and continuing the story in maybe a Disney Plus series. I think that fits much better than a whole movie. Emilia Clarke was cool. Lando's obviously getting his series, so maybe it'll connect to that a little more. So we'll see though, but Solo is at number 12 for me. Number 11, if you remember my reviews, my light side, dark side reviews, Rise of Skywalker should not surprise you here at this spot. I think it is, I hate saying it's a failure, but it didn't do what it needed to do as the final movie in the 9-episode saga. I feel it was rushed. A lot of people felt the same way. The plot was all over the place. The frickin' dagger is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Palpatine coming back, I go back and forth on it, but at the end of the day, I do think it takes away from Vader's redemption, even though I do believe Palpatine would have a contingency plan for him dying. But regardless, I think it broke too many rules that George Lucas laid out. In the end, it is a Rey revenge story going after Palpatine for killing her parents. She's not from nowhere anymore, which I don't like. And yeah, just a lot of things went wrong in this one. So it's at number 11 for me. Favorite scene though, Han and Ben on the Death Star, the destroyed Death Star, having a face to face, and Ben throwing his lightsaber. Really liked that. That was awesome. And I really liked the scene where they hear about Poe's backstory, and he tells him he was a spice runner. He's like, "Wait, weren't you a smuggler? Wait, weren't you a First Order trooper?" That was genuinely funny. Favorite quote, that is going to be when Zori said, "There's more of us. In the galaxy, there's more good guys than bad guys. That's how the First Order wins. They make us think that there's not more of us, and that could be applied to real life. There's more good people in this world. At least I believe so." And I'm Mark of Balance, so I kind of get this, middle-of-the-road opinion thing, so you should listen. Favorite soundtrack? By this point, a lot of the stuff was just getting recycled from older movies, so nothing's really stuck out to me, but the trailer music that they used for this one, I don't know if it was the first trailer, the reveal trailer, I don't know the terminology, but oh my gosh, the Star Wars main theme, but it's like beefed up through the roof. You know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't, go back and watch the first trailer for this. It's right when C-3PO's, "I'm taking my last look at my friends," and then it just, and then it hits really hard. That's amazing. Can't believe it didn't make it in the movie, and that's why this movie's at number 11, because it didn't put it in the movie. Impact, I think everyone knows it was a mediocre ending to the saga, and a lot of people want the sequel series retconned, and I'm thinking it's because of this one. But it did have a lot of new Force powers, even though some of them were a little iffy, but the Force healing, okay. Giving up your life for someone else? No, don't like that. And the dyad thing is pretty cool. At number 10, as I mentioned before, I will be including the Clone Wars movie, and here it is, at number 10. I nostalgically really like this movie, but I can't see myself putting it up above any of the other movies at all. I cannot. But I really, really, really like the Battle of Christosis. I think it's super interesting, super brutal. I mean, clones were getting shot in the freaking face nonstop. The way Obi-Wan distracts the main villain, and the way Anakin and Ahsoka destroy the they destroy the shield generator. That whole introduction with them is great. I think there's just a lot of fun action scenes in this. And like I said, it begins Ahsoka's journey. And how can you not acknowledge its start? I mean, come on. Favorite quote would definitely be when Anakin has the heart-to-heart with Ahsoka, and he's like, "You might not have made it as Obi-Wan's Padawan, but you just might make it as mine." I think that's awesome. She's reckless, but also wants to follow the rules. Kind of like Anakin, but he definitely doesn't follow the rules. And I also like when the bad guy tells the droid to get Obi-Wan and him some liquid. I think that is such a weird thing to say, but it is really funny. Favorite soundtrack, the Ahsoka's theme, the flute, the beginning of this amazing theme that gives me chills every time. Of course, nothing else to say. And impact, where do I begin? The Clone Wars has significantly expanded the Star Wars galaxy. It has made it so filled out with characters, races, and everything, and it's given them all backstories. It looked into political drama. The Clone Wars spawned so many series characters that are now beloved. It touches Rebels characters. It touches Mando now. If there's a character introduced nowadays, most likely they either showed up in Clone Wars, or they were related to someone in Clone Wars, or something happened in Clone Wars that you would know them from. And yeah, Clone Wars impact cannot be understated enough. So number 10, there you go. Number 9, Force Awakens. This is low for Force Awakens, objectively. I understand that. But it's just too similar to A New Hope. We all know this. I'm not saying anything that is new or innovative in the way of criticizing this movie. It's beat for beat Force Awakens. And as I mentioned before, if it doesn't do anything new, I'm not going to like it as much. So that's why it's this low for me. It is a fun movie. I can watch this movie and pick it up from any scene. I really do enjoy rewatching the movie. Han, is really good in this movie. He really earned the 9 or 10 figure paycheck that he got. I don't even know. It was absurd, but he earned it. He did not throw in the towel here. He was very funny and very endearing in this movie. I think the character introductions were good. I liked all the characters. It just didn't do anything new, so that's why it's at number 9 for me. Favorite scene, definitely Poe and Finn in the TIE fighter escaping the First Order Star Destroyer. The chemistry in that scene, the amount of energy and fun and comedy that was infused into this one scene was so good. I can't believe that their relationship never evolved past this. I mean, in every other movie, it's just, they always just have this huge bro hug, and it's like, oh, remember that first scene we had together? And it's like, why didn't we expand on this? Why didn't we put them together more? It's really frustrating to watch back now, but it had that potential in the moment, and that's why I really liked it. Favorite quote, definitely anything Han Solo said. The one I always like is when Finn's like, oh, we could use the Force. And Han Solo's like, that's not how the Force works. Awesome dialogue. Soundtrack, I believe it's called Abduction. I think it's Kylo Ren's theme kind of fused with something else. Or Starkiller, which is when Starkiller literally destroys 5 planets in one. It kind of has a mix of some Revenge of the Sith stuff in there. And that's probably why I like it a lot. But those two are probably my favorite. Impact, what can I say? The hype for this movie would not be surpassed by anything else except Avengers. But Avengers took 20 movies to get that much excitement. This was only the 7th movie in a series. And the hype behind this movie was unbelievable. Now social media was around. I mean, I'm sure if Phantom Menace was around with social media, that one would have gotten insane hype. But Force Awakens was right in the breadbasket of Twitter, Instagram, everything just popping off. And this movie, the hype for this was, for me, the hype for this movie was better than the movie because of all the behind the scenes stuff you got to see, the theories after you saw it. I remember the first time I saw Ben Solo or Kylo Ren without his mask on, and I saw Adam Driver. I didn't know who Adam Driver was. I saw his face. I'm like, there's no way that's the new bad guy. That guy looks like a nerd, like a really dweeby nerd. I was very upset with it, but he turned out to be the best part of the sequel series, so it doesn't matter. That's all in the past. But yeah, the hype behind this movie was insane. So Force Awakens, number 9. Number 8, Episode 8, Last Jedi. Everyone, let's calm down. See, all right. It's going to be okay. Number 8, Last Jedi. This movie did new things, tried new stuff. It questioned what Star Wars is. It questioned the Force. It questioned the Jedi. It did so many outside-the-box things that I think worked without screwing up too many other things. I think I mentioned in my Light Side, Dark Side. Plot-wise, the movie is very flawed. Thematically, though, I think it is almost perfect within the realm of Star Wars. I think Rian Johnson did a great job of doing that. My main gripe with the movie was that it was very disjointed. Everyone's storyline didn't all affect each other. All of them were going on different paths, and in the end, they all just showed up together, and they were like, wow, we all saved the day, kind of, not really, but it wasn't cohesive story. Unlike the original films or the prequels, every character, all of their actions relied on each other. In this one, it was just like, Finn's finding himself, Poe's finding himself, Rey's finding herself, which is fine. I'm okay with character-focused arcs. It's just they have to somehow work together to elevate all of them in the end. But in the end, I mean, it felt like 3 separate movies for them. But, you could listen to the Dark Side and Light Side reviews because I could keep going. Favorite scene, I would say Luke's explanation of how the Jedi fell and talking about himself. Oh, I was such a legend. And I still failed. And him going through that. When Yoda comes and they both look at the burning tree, Yoda uses Force lightning. I mean, that was such a cool scene too. Anything really with Luke or Rey in this was probably my favorite scene. I did like Benicio del Toro and his stutter, though, on the ship after they got off Canto Bight. I did like that scene as well, where he's like, First Order, Resistance, all part of the same thing. That's great impression there, Mark. Favorite quotes, let the past die, kill it if you have to, like that. And I really like the burden of a master thing that Yoda goes into, talking about how their students will always surpass you, and that's the burden of a master. And I think that was nice and timely in the movie. And you thought I forgot, which admittedly I did forget, but I'm back to record this part after editing. The throne room scene. This was the part of the movie that hooked me completely. It was shocking. It was a twist. It was something no one in the theater expected to see Rey and Kylo working together at this point in the trilogy. The energy in the theater was the best I've felt from a Disney movie in the Star Wars galaxy. Everyone was just locked in, and then it zooms in to these slow motion shots, even though the choreography is a little questionable at some points. The moment he ignites that lightsaber and kills Snoke, it's like, what? All your theories just went out the window with Snoke. You're like, what? Okay, oh my gosh, wait, what? And then they have that face-off where Kylo asks Rey to join her, and it's so tense. And it's like, wait a minute, are we gonna see this? And it just felt fresh. It felt like something new. It took all your expectations, like Snoke's the big bad, and then it literally cut them in half. And yeah, that scene, I think it's one of the best in Star Wars. Soundtrack, once again, I think most of the sequel trilogy soundtrack is refurbished sounds from older movies, but Act 2 was cool. That was new. I liked that theme whenever they did the beautiful shots of the singular island. And I liked the, I think it was when Finn was going directly into the Death Star battering ram door opener thing. That was a good one, but I think that was mostly made up of Revenge of the Sith, Order 66 stuff, if I'm remembering correctly. Impact, I mean, is this not the most controversial Star Wars film of all time? This started the toxic fandom that we see today with Twitter and everything. I mean, it isn't the only thing that started, like, toxic fandoms have always been around, but I feel like it was amplified with this movie for sure because it was so divisive. People say they love it, people say they hate it. What I will say is that Last Jedi is neither a masterpiece or a failure. And people on those two ends are completely wrong because it is not a masterpiece of a movie, no. And it is not a failure of a movie, no. But other than that, I think the impact is, trying new things with Star Wars and trying to get out of the box of the originals and the prequels. Even though it did still draw from them. I know. Crate and Hoth are basically the same thing. I know, it's salt and it's snow. I get it. But yes, this is my list. So Last Jedi 8. Number 7, Attack of the Clones. I went back and forth on this as I was making this list, and at the end of the day, I could not put any sequel films ahead of any of the prequel films. I think a long time ago, meaning 2 months ago, I probably would have put Attack of the Clones towards the bottom of the list. But then I thought about it, and I thought about what George did with the movie, how forward-thinking it was, how much nostalgia I have with it, how many cool scenes there are in it, and I said, no, there is no way I could put a sequel trilogy film ahead of this because it does so many great things. Obi-Wan in this movie is a stud. This is where the standing began. Obi-Wan was not Stand from Phantom Menace. We all know this. He did not. That haircut was terrible. He did not need the crew cut. No, with the little thing. No. This, the mullet, the beard. This is where we started to stand the boy. Anakin and Padme's love, obviously, gotten a lot of flack. I've talked about it in a bunch of interviews. I think it fits. Anakin grew up around monks. Do you think he's got any game? No. Padme grew up a freaking queen and a politician surrounded by diplomats and probably, I don't know, but probably around people that she would not be able to flirt with or do anything like that with. I'll get into the impact a little later. I was about to segue into it, but I'm going to wait till the end. But favorite scenes, Kamino with Obi-Wan meeting Jango Fett, and then Obi-Wan seeing all these clones and being like, who the hell is Sifo Dyas? Love that mystery that they introduced there. Anything in the Geonosis arena, I love the monster battle and then the clones coming in and the droids coming out and Mace Windu. It's all awesome. Seeing that many lightsabers on screen, I mean, come on. The people that saw the originals in theater probably freaked the frick out when they saw that many lightsabers on screen. I mean, whoo. Anakin doing the, dark side ride straight to the Tusken Raider camp. I mean, that was ridiculously dark, but the build up to it, the two sons behind him as he's riding through the canyons, that's a sick scene. Count Dooku basically telling Obi-Wan that the Jedi are being undermined by a Sith Lord right now, and Obi-Wan being like, "You're Sith, you would never, they would never, that's not possible." And Count Dooku was like, "Okay, you're right." I think that's so cool that was literally told to us, and they simply, their hypocrisy did not let them see it. They were literally clouding their own minds with it. Awesome. Favorite quote, Anakin comes into the arena. Obi-Wan's like, what the hell are you doing here? He says, we're here to rescue you, master. And Obi-Wan says, good job. Looks up at his hands shackled to a pole, and these two coming in also being shackled. Oh, so funny. Oh, I forgot another favorite scene. The pear cutting scene. Am I stupid? I mean, the beauty of how Anakin used the Force to cut a pear and slowly and majestically pushed it across the table onto Padme's fork. Oh, beautiful. Also, the fireplace scene. Padme in all leather. Anakin approaching her very weirdly, and they're looking very uncomfortable. The passion in the scene just, it's beautiful. Yeah. Jokes. Soundtrack, Across the Stars, the love theme, amazing stuff, beautiful. The other one is the Love Pledge. There's 2 tracks. The Love Pledge is half of Across the Stars, and the other half is the droid theme, which I'm going to say another controversial opinion here. I think the droid march theme is better than Imperial March. I think I just lost my podcast for Star Wars. I might have done it now, but I do. That thing gets me going. The dun 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 dun. I love. It's so great. And that's at the second half of the Love Pledge. If you wanted to find it on Spotify or Apple Music or anywhere you find your streaming needs. Impact. Here we go. Impact. I mean, the clones have now become characters. They were introduced here. Their backstory was super unknown. There's this mysterious army. This deep plot with Sidious to get these clones created with these chips in them so he could rise to the top and then turn them on his own people. Jango Fett, the Mandalorians. I mean, did we see a Mandalorian any earlier? I don't think so. We saw Boba Fett, but we didn't know anything about him. He didn't say a word. I think he might have said 2 words, maybe. But Jango in this, you see Boba Fett as a kid. He actually talks. You see the Slave One. We've got the Mandalorian now. Geonosis, I mean, the Geonosians became a big part of Clone Wars and even were introduced and talked about more in Rebels, how they got eradicated. But the politics, I love that everyone hated on the politics, but I think it was so genius to go back and examine a galaxy made of thousands and thousands of races and planets and how all these different political ideologies can get against each other and how that could lead to someone taking power without them even knowing. And I know we're talking about banking clans and trade deals and embargoes. Like, I know it's all like above the shoulders mustard shit, like Matthew McConaughey would say. Kind of wicks some people out. But I think the political drama of the prequels is so great and so engaging and dynamic for Star Wars. I mean, could you really just do the same thing again with the originals and just be like, big bad guy? Yeah. I think it's so cool that they went back and really dug into it and really fleshed out the galaxy. So I think politics is very important too. Number 6, we have Phantom Menace. Phantom Menace, back in the day, was probably hated on a lot. As I mentioned before, if there was Twitter, it probably would have been hated on a lot. The expectations for this movie coming after the greatest trilogy in movie history was probably high. And George took the biggest risk and did politics and introduced all these new characters, but I think what he did was so great and how everything tied together so nicely. I mean, you see, something I didn't appreciate when I was a kid when I watched it was I didn't appreciate how R2 came into the mix, how C-3PO was created, and like they've become these icons of the series, and he treats this origin story of how they became part of it so well and delicate, and I really, really like it. I mean, and this movie introduces Qui-Gon Jinn, who will go on to become the best and most forward-thinking Jedi that we ever see on screen. I mean, some come after him, but he really lays the foundation of what a Jedi should be. And it's the seed that's planted so early in the prequel trilogy. Obviously, we saw Luke, but Luke was, learning on his own. Yoda was telling him to do one thing, and he did another thing. But, technically in the timeline, Qui-Gon was the first one in the galaxy to kind of think this way and want to push the Jedi forward. So that's kind of more on the impact side, but that's why I really like the movie. Favorite scenes, pod racing, Darth Maul fight, but really I could say the last hour and a half of this movie because, 4 freaking fights happen. We have a space battle. We have the Gungan battle with all the droids fighting them with the Bulbas. We have the Darth Maul battle, and then we have Padme and them infiltrating the castle, I think. It's literally 4 battles are going on at one time, and they're all, like, nicely paced, and it's really fun to watch. Favorite quote, probably spinning. That's a good trick. I forget what Anakin's mom says to him when he leaves, but that scene too, any quote from that scene was really emotional. I really like that as well. Soundtrack, Duel of the Fates. You want to run through a wall? Turn that on. Let's roll. Also, I believe it's called High Council something. That was really cool when I went back and listened to it, because I always thought that one of the pieces of it was originally in Revenge of the Sith, and then I went back and listened. I was like, oh wait, Revenge of the Sith got it from Phantom Menace. It's, for Qui-Gon's funeral, and it zooms in on Palpatine's face. That soundtrack is awesome, because then it's elevated in Revenge of the Sith, and whoo. Another fun fact, if you didn't know, when the soundtrack track list was released for Phantom Menace, it was originally released before the movie came out, and in the soundtrack, the title of one of the tracks was Qui-Gon's Death. So anyone that was looking to get the soundtrack or was really interested in Star Wars soundtracks, which is like most people, would have seen that the new main character, basically, Qui-Gon Jinn, dies at the end of this one. So probably a terrible spoiler to be a part of, but I always thought that trivia piece was really funny. Number 5. Disney. Rogue One. Disney, you did the thing on this one. The trailers for this movie said it was going to be amazing. The opening scene of this movie said this movie was going to be amazing. And then I got through the movie, and it was still amazing. The first trailer where every cut is done on the Imperial siren sounding, so sick. Such an awesome edit. This movie made you care about a bunch of people that had no relation to anyone in the Star Wars galaxy that you knew of, which was new for Star Wars, really. There was no Force users, except blind Jedi kind of guy, and Darth Vader, but, he was used perfectly sparingly. Perfect. And by the end, you're so attached to them, all their different backstories. I know people have problems with Jyn, I get it, but she is I forget the video I saw, but she is an active protagonist. She doesn't allow things to happen to her, she makes decisions. I believe that's what it was. I don't know, but I think that makes sense. I really like Cassian's character. It shows this dark side of the rebels, that they're a terrorist organization technically, and they do some terroristy things for the good of the galaxy, but terrorists nonetheless. And there's so many Riz Ahmed plays a Imperial pilot. We've got Mads Mikkelsen designing the Death Star weapon. Mads Mikkelsen's in the movie. It's automatically a 10. We could all agree on that. I could keep going about Rogue One, but I think this is a really special movie. And, they had me when they said, basically, when everyone dies at the end and the movie becomes a sacrifice movie where no one survives, you automatically get me. It's sad, but it's triumphant at the end. And that's my favorite movie. That's my favorite movie, any piece of art or anything. I want to see the darkest of dark and then lift me up to the highest of high. And that's what we get at the end with Leia's face. Favorite quote is definitely when Cassian confronts Jyn, because it is so satisfying, because you're thinking the exact same thing when she's like, we have to do this for the rebels and all this other stuff. And Cassian's just like, I've been doing this my whole life. I've been fighting this way my whole life. You just joined. This isn't new to me. This is new to you. And I just love when he just lays down the law, because, to that point, she's like, let's go rebels, let's go rebels. She's really doing it for her father, kind of, to carry on his legacy. And Cassian's just like, nah, you gotta ride or die for everybody on the squad, not just yourself. And that's my favorite quote for sure. Oh, geez, I didn't even do my favorite scene. Favorite scene, opening scene, definitely. And then basically every death scene. Everything on Scarif is just amazing. The space battle, the sand. The sand is my favorite, I hate sand. No, everything on Scarif is awesome. I love that planet. So yeah, that's my favorite scenes. Multiple scenes. Favorite soundtrack. This movie, had a great soundtrack, and it sounded so Star Warsy for someone that never composed Star Wars. I forget his name. I think it's Michael Giacchino. I don't know, but he did an excellent job. And my favorite is definitely Your Father Would Be Proud. That sounds like it was scored by John Williams himself, no doubt. Also, Master Switch is really good. That's basically when, shit's going south and they gotta hit the Master Switch. Impact, obviously, it makes anthology movies possible now in Star Wars. It was such a big success. It was the first one. It legitimizes them, and we're going to get more of them, I think, because of Rogue One. If this thing tanked, I think they would have been a lot less enthusiastic on trying to do Solo, and now, obviously, with Patty Jenkins and Rogue One, and, even Visions with all these short films. I mean, I think this really opened the door for that. And it showed that you can take a bunch of characters we don't know, not related to Skywalker, and make us care a lot about him by the end of the movie. And, I don't think Cassian needs a show, but if I could see more Cassian in K2, let's go. Even though they said Alan Tudyk hasn't been responding or hasn't been invited to the set, I have no idea what that even means. I need K2 in the show, but whatever. Number 4, I've done this a lot. Number 4 is Episode 4. Episode 4. I did it with Last Jedi. It was all subconscious, maybe. But A New Hope, I mean, what can I really say here? A New Hope started the greatest modern mythology that we have in human history right now. This story is now timeless. People in 1,000 years, if we're still a race of humans by then, will know about this story, and this movie really started it. I mean, the movie has aged, for sure. I mean, it's from 1977. But I still think that there is a lot to love about this movie. Just the introduction to the world on Tatooine is great. The amount of new, interesting creatures you see. Han Solo's introduction. And then this idea of these, old Clone Wars. This thing called the Force. Han Solo being like, I don't believe any of that. And then the rescue on the Death Star. It's all just so charming, and it's so fun to watch while also being kind of deep. I don't know. It's so hard to explain why I love this movie, but I always get chills watching it at multiple points. It's part of the original trilogy. All of them do this. But I think it maybe is just a sense of wonder. I think that might be it. It's a very wondrous movie. I don't know. My favorite scene, definitely Han saving the day, coming down and shooting the ships next to Darth Vader, and then Darth Vader getting blown away, and he's yahoo doing all that, and then Han being able to, and then Luke being able to take the shot. I mean, yeah, what scene's gonna beat that? Come on now. I know anything on the Death Star 2 was not the Death Star 2, the Death Star TOO was also great for sure. Favorite quote? Oh, easily. I'm going to Tashi Station to pick up some power converters. What a great piece of dialogue that was. No, my probably favorite one was when I met you, I was just the learner, but now I am the master. Because it's very straightforward, but it also shows some history, which was expanded upon, which we love to see. Soundtrack, first of all, the main Star Wars theme, that shook the world up in 77, I bet. Talking from experience, obviously. Probably the most recognizable theme in movies. Leia's theme, definitely. That only gets better with time. R.I.P. Carrie. And the throne room at the end, another banger. That's a great one. That one gets you going too. That's kind of like Duel of the Fates gets you going. That's a brick waller. And Impact, I already said it. It started the greatest modern mythology. And what's better than that? What can beat that Impact? Come on. All right, we've made it to the top 3. Number 3 is going to be Empire Strikes Back. Most lists, that would be low, but I think the only thing that's holding Empire Strikes Back for me was, as a kid, I did not like the Dagobah scenes. The entire episode part in Dagobah was not my favorite. It was such an ugly planet, and I thought Yoda was funny but kind of annoying. I don't know. But what makes Empire Strikes Back so great is that as you get older, it gets better and better and better. It is like so deep and profound in its dialogue and how funny it is when you get older and you start to understand sarcasm. The movie just goes on to another stratosphere of great. And it took me till I got older to really appreciate it. And I like that the movie can age well. I mean, as a kid, you can love it. And then as an adult, you're really going to love it. And there's just so many great things about it. I recently got to rewatch it in the movie theaters for its 40th anniversary, which was one of the best movie experiences of my life. I literally was sitting there with a lump in my throat and chills throughout my whole body. I mean, I was in heaven on earth because it was so cool to act like I was there in 1980 seeing this movie for the first time and seeing it on the big screen. I could just keep going about this movie. I mean, Cloud City, the design, regalness of it, Lando being introduced. Oh my, it's all so great. My favorite scene would definitely be Yoda, though, taking the X-Wing out of the swamp. That scene has so many quotables, and the music. And I just realized that I didn't say for A New Hope that one of my favorite scenes is Luke looking at the twin sunsets with the Force theme. And I need to be shot, because that is just terrible on my part. The only thing that reminded me of that was that the Force theme plays kind of here with Yoda lifting it out. And now I'm like, wait, I didn't mention the Force theme or Luke looking at the binary sunset in the last movie. I am so sorry. If you want to stop listening now, I totally understand. The binary sunset is as Star Wars can get. If I were to show someone that's never seen Star Wars before, or they need to be convinced to watch Star Wars, I would simply show them the binary sunset scene, Force theme playing, Luke looking out, this grand start to an adventure, and if they weren't hooked by that, then whatever. But I think that scene encapsulates the magic of Star Wars and the wonder of the galaxy. So I can't believe I didn't mention this in the New Hope part. I'm so sorry. So unprofessional. When that record button starts, sometimes you just black out. But there you go. That's probably my favorite scene in Star Wars, and I literally forgot it. So everyone makes mistakes. But back to Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, and, this scene not only contains my favorite soundtrack, which is the Yoda's theme, but it contains my favorite quote, where Luke says, "I don't believe it." And Yoda says, "And that is why you fail." Whew, so good. So good. Obviously, do or do not, there is no try is also really good, but I didn't really understand that quote until Rebels explained it to me. Sorry, I've been talking for a while, so I just had to cough that out. I also really like Darth Vader saying, "all too easy," and flipping the switch. Or also getting kicked and going, "Ooh." Darth Vader had some weird sounds from the original trilogy, I must say. As I mentioned, favorite soundtrack, Yoda's theme, and then Cloud City, or City in the Clouds, that's what it's called. City in the Clouds is an awesome suite. It has a bunch of stuff put together. It also has the ending when they're running to the Millennium Falcon as they're getting shot and they fly off. Beautiful stuff. Impact, this is considered one of the greatest movies ever, not even by Star Wars fans, but by just the general movie community. So I can't really say any much more to Star Wars fans because the world thinks it's one of the best movies ever too. So, that's all I got. Other than that, Impact, Darth Vader, the greatest twist of all time. Luke, I am your father, even though that's not what he said. No, he says, "No, Luke, I am your father." Movie critics were probably like, well, this plot twist was not even hinted at in the previous movie. So this, not modern critics probably wouldn't like it, but it is one of the greatest. Is the greatest plot twist of all time, probably, except what's in the box. All right, we're down to the top two. Number 2, drum roll. It's going to be Revenge of the Sith. And I say that, and when I say it out loud, it doesn't sound right, to me at least. Because I'm trying to think, why would this be number 2? And I can't think of any reasons why it wouldn't be number 1. But I'm going to put it at number 2. And I really don't want to get into why Revenge of the Sith is so great, because I would be here for another 45 minutes, and this is not the Joe Rogan podcast, and I don't need to be in here for 2 hours lecturing you on Star Wars. But Revenge of the Sith is so special because it's almost like a perfect Shakespearean tragedy. It has the over-the-top dramatic dialogue, and it has, obviously, the beautiful musical score behind it for the entire 2.5 hours. It has this rise and fall. It has this epicness to it. It has this finality to it at the end. Even though it's the beginning of something else, it has this, dark ending, but also leaves a little bit of hope in there. And I just simply think the last hour and a half of this movie, from Order 66 on, is just the best thing in Star Wars and one of my favorite parts of any movie ever, and I don't think it'll ever be surpassed because it was emotional when I was 6 years old when I saw it in a theater. I didn't even know I had tear ducts to cry at a movie. I obviously cried for not getting ice cream, but for a movie, I didn't think I could do that. And to this day, it's just the most rewatchable one for me. I can quote the entire movie. I can sit down and watch it and quote the entire thing. It's really cool. And I do have a very interesting project that I'd love to hear your guys' support on. I'm thinking about doing a table read for Revenge of the Sith with a bunch of friends. I think that would be really cool. But that's to be continued some other time. But yeah, the fact that I could just quote this with my friends at any point. There's so many different memes that came out of this movie. It's just such a cultural thing at this point. And it gave us Obi-Wan and Anakin at their best. And I could keep going, but I'm going to follow my format because I said I would, and I'm going to. Favorite scene? I'd probably say scene when Anakin looks out across Mustafar and you just see a single tear. And it just says so much without saying anything. And I think that's what Revenge of the Sith does really well, is that a lot of the most impactful scenes, not anything is said, it's just shown, which is so much better sometimes than, explaining what the audience is supposed to feel. Because you can interpret it so many different ways. You could see it as Anakin knows this is wrong and realizes he can't go back. You could see it as just scared for Padme still. Maybe this won't work. I mean, me and my sister still kind of talk about it today, and, some of my friends as well. Like, it has so many different possibilities, and there's no dialogue. So it's all just, what is Anakin thinking? And that just makes him a better character. Other favorite scene is when, Obi-Wan arrives, and Padme and Anakin are obviously having it out, and the camera cuts to Obi-Wan perfectly framed inside the ship, about to walk down and confront Anakin. And Padme starts freaking out, and the whole scene's just so quotable. I mean, you brought her here to kill me. Let her go, Anakin. Let her go. Just, it's so great. Order 66 scene, duh. I mean, it's so good, they've now remade it 4 frickin' times, and it hurts me every single time, and it should continue to hurt me because I love it. But, I mean, that's just a couple. I love the scene where Obi-Wan says, "I'm so sorry," when he finds out that he has to tell Padme that he's going to go attack Anakin. Darth Plagueis, oh my god, why isn't this number 1? Favorite quote, I'm not even going to try. I can't. There's so many. Soundtrack, once again, there's way too many. Anakin's betrayal, Anakin's dark deeds, Battle of the Heroes, Obi-Wan vs. Anakin, Enter Lord Vader, Immolation scene, Birth of the Twin Sons and Padme's Destiny, Padme's Reminiscence. I mean, that's basically the whole soundtrack. It's ridiculous. Impact, the frickin' Empire, Darth Vader being made, Order 66 being a phenomenon, becoming almost like everyone's top 2 or 3 Star Wars movie. I mean, even freaking Kanye West was talking about it on the Joe Rogan podcast about rewatching the movie like 20 times. Like, I think it's aged so well and so many people love it. And now we're getting this Obi-Wan series that I think is literally the closest we can get to the Force Awakens hype. I think this series is literally going to break the internet when it finally premieres because of this movie and how good it portrayed Obi-Wan. This movie just, it's got a legacy. It's got a legacy. I think we could all agree on that. Oh, and I'll do a quick shout out to my sister for her favorite quote in the movie. So this is how liberty dies, with thunder's applause. Really great dialogue and really eerie too. So there you go, Jen. And number 1, I hope if you're listening to this, you know all the Star Wars movies and the ones I haven't said. So I hope I don't have to say it, but I will for you guys. Return of the Jedi. Now, as you can see, I am a sucker for the end of a trilogy. If you could pull it off, then it's automatically one of my favorite movies. And Return of the Jedi has the best ending, probably of any movie I've ever seen. And I don't want to say the ending's the reason that it's my favorite movie from the saga, but I think that is literally why. Because it ties everything up so perfectly. And it's not just on Anakin and Darth Vader's side, but Han and Leia and Chewie. It's so celebratory with them too. And even R2 and C-3PO, all coming together on Endor to finish the mission on their end. And Lando and, I don't know his name, Fish Guy, them being involved too and blowing up the Death Star where everyone else is doing anything. That's how you do individual character arcs spread out all across a bunch of different areas, but in the end they all impact one another. The relationship between Darth Vader and Luke in here is so tragic and compelling to watch because you can literally feel that Darth Vader is a person in there. He even says, it's too late for me, Luke. They have all these heart-to-hearts, and Luke is just standing his ground like, I'm going to get you out of there. And Luke is so mature in this movie. He is literally the essence of a Jedi Master. His confidence, his poise, everything. The Jabba's palace whole portion is so iconic, I think. And people say that's the weak part of the movie, but I don't know what they're talking about. Jabba has become this huge figure in Star Wars and, pop culture. And, in the end, it just comes down to the end. The last hour and a half where there's a space battle and Luke is just locked in this room with his father and this terrible guy. And I know they always say, Luke would never go to the bad side, but they really take him to the edge here. You see him mentally process this anger inside him, and he's about to snap. He literally grabs lightsaber, is about to kill Palpatine. This is exactly what he wants, which as a kid, you don't really understand. Like, why not? Just kill him. He's a bad guy. You're not going to be bad. But, it's the deeper meaning of it. If you kill someone in anger, you'll never be free of it. But this kind of just transitions to my favorite scene, which is, when Darth Vader says, "Sister, you have a sister. If you won't join me, maybe she will." And then Luke goes apeshit, and he goes after him, and the music blares. That's my favorite soundtrack, Emperor, I think that's what it's called. And the music blares, and Luke is literally slamming his lightsaber. No technique, but Darth Vader is absolutely overwhelmed. There's not this big force off or anything. It's literally just lightsaber, brutal combat. And then Luke looks at his hand, looks at Vader's hand that he just chopped off, and he throws his lightsaber away. And he's like, "I'm a Jedi, like my father before me." And that is just amazing. When is the last time a blockbuster, sci-fi, action, whatever, when is the last time a blockbuster movie like that, with that much pressure on it, end with the hero winning by not fighting? I'll repeat that. When's the last time the hero wins by not fighting in this kind of trilogy? I don't think there is. It's such an original ending. It's such a poetic and thematically perfect ending. And he wins because he doesn't give in, and he convinces his father to free himself, because that's all he can do. You can't free anyone from anything. They have to choose to become free from it. And then Palpatine says, "So be it, Jedi." And then electricity. Cool. We never saw that before. Electricity. So boom. Another impact there. Force electricity. Force lightning. And then the music's blaring, and Darth Vader's thing is getting foggy, and he's like, "Oh my gosh." And then he does it. And it's like, yes, let's go. And then it's just a happily ever after. Nothing better than a happy ending. We get the Darth Vader on a pyre. We get the Ewoks celebrating. We get the Force ghosts. It's just perfect. If you can end a trilogy like this, I mean, I'm putty in your hands. I'm yours. There you go. And I mean, I didn't follow the format there, but I think I hit all the points just by talking about how much I love it. Impact, I think it finished off the best trilogy of movies in the best way possible by sticking to its themes and doing it the best way it could. And I don't think Star Wars will ever surpass it in ending a series or trilogy so well. Revenge of the Sith came close, but Revenge of the Sith ended in heartbreak. This one ended in happiness. And even though I love darkness, and I think dark endings are really good, I think happy endings are more, they stick with you longer probably. Just like Rogue One, it was sad, and I really like the sad ending, but it wasn't like fully happy of an ending. But this one was a very perfect, happy ending. Everyone rides off into the sunset. And that's my list, guys. Whew, I am tired. I think you guys could tell my voice is not where it was in the beginning. But we're here, an hour in, I think. Well, once I edit this down, it might not be an hour. But, wait, you edit? What? You don't just, perfectly talk for a whole hour? What? But yeah, I'll wrap this up. I hope you guys enjoyed the list. I hope it's at least respectable from your end. That's all I can ask, respect. But I do think this is a nice, definitive list. It's probably the best one out there, because I am Mark of Balance. I toe the line perfectly. I don't go too far left, too far right on the dark side, light side. I stay right in the middle. Perfect. Right on course, right through the trench run. And I nail the proton torpedo right in and blow up the Death Star. It's perfect every time. But yes, thank you guys again so much for listening today. Please tell all your friends, anyone that likes Star Wars, to come on down and listen. I would really appreciate it. If you could leave me a review or follow me on Spotify. Apple Podcasts is a little behind on all that stuff, but reviews are great too if you could leave those. Follow me on Instagram at Mark__. of underscore balance. Sorry, underscores are just the worst. But yeah, I can't thank you guys enough, and I'll see you next time. Stay safe, stay healthy, and may the force be with you.